Good morning. Today's Sunday, September 7th. It's 7:36 a.m. Central Time. I just like to wake up early, get my coffee, and get my Sunday prep going, and just getting ready for the week. So we'll just kind of walk through everything and just kind of see how we go. I've been looking at things a little bit before hopping on, but still haven't really looked at everything in detail. So we'll just be kind of running through it together. So first thing we'll want to look at is indexes and just how things looked on Friday at the end of Friday. And so for the Qs, yeah, the Q it was interesting on the Qs. So if this was a line chart, and if I just make this a line chart, it's like the last 2 days, Thursday to Friday, like not much happened, right? And so it's kind of interesting. But if you go to back to the candles, like we had a nice push up. This was really the gap up, right? And then we tried to push up, fell over, closed the gap, and then went even. Oh, I don't know if we closed the gap, and then we went even more, and then from there pushed back up, right? Pretty much to the close, I think it was, or pretty much to the previous day close. But closed a little bit red, I guess, on the day for the candle. But kind of an indecision day, right? Like we tried, I think, and then we tried to go down, and then we just kind of ended up middle of that candle. So it's pretty indecision. I think with that, you have to kind of zoom out and say, okay, you know, it's been bullish for a long time. We've been leveling out here since the end of July, and so we're kind of sideways at this point. I guess kind of a little you could draw a box there. So we could go either way, but we'll see what happens. But I thought that was interesting. For the ES, right? We made the new all-time high pre-market, went down, broke the low of Thursday. Yes, we did, just barely, or swept it, pushed back up, but didn't close green, and so kind of closed right back at this area of resistance, support, whatever you want to call it. I mean, could be support here, could be resistance up here. So it's just an interesting zone to watch, I think, for the ES. But again, you zoom out, it's bullish, right? And so just keeping that in mind. The Russell's interesting. We had the all-time highs, and we did have a pullback. Um, like the ES broke yesterday's low, NQ didn't break yesterday's low. Um, the Russell did not break the yesterday's low, which would be Thursday, since we're talking about Friday, and we closed green. And so that's kind of interesting. Almost closed above the previous all-time high, but not quite. But definitely closed green, closed higher than Thursday. So that's kind of I think the Russell's always been leading recently, and so we continue to lead on the Russell. So that's interesting to keep in mind. And then the Dow, look at that. So the Dow kind of looking like the ES, except that it didn't make a new all-time high. So we had set this alert, yep, and it just didn't. Almost got triggered, did not get triggered. Like we failed to make the new all-time high. So that is interesting there. So we had ES gap up into all-time highs. We had, and they closed red. Also swept the low of the Thursday. You got the Russell, which made all-time highs, did not break the low of Thursday, and also closed green. And then you had the NQ, which broke all the resistance from August 18th, like all swept all those highs, didn't make a new all-time high, didn't break the low of Thursday, and really just kind of closed muted. Really, it closed muted, and it closed higher than the close of Thursday, right? And so that, even though it kind of ended muted, that's still kind of bullish for me. um, I think the ES still, it's a little bit cautious because it did sweep that low, right? We kind of closed a little bit. I mean, kind of middle of the candle, also kind of muted there actually. But Russell's bullish. You can't argue. And then for the Dow, we failed. Like we just couldn't make a new all-time high. We didn't break the low of Thursday. Also, and then that held, and we kind of closed a little bit in the lower half, but kind of near the mid of the candle. So really, like in this little range here, like we're just consolidating right here. Um, so it's quite interesting. It feels a little bit more bullish still, like cautiously, but that's kind of what things look like. Um, then we got our, we got the VIX, which is back down in MAs, had this push up, and now we're just kind of hanging out. This kind of outside candle situation, but then closed near the lows. So we'll see. Yeah, we'll see how that plays out. We had the dollar try to, like, we're trying to break out above all these MAs, and we're broke down again. So we're just kind of consolidating here. And then the we got our treasury note yields falling over. So we did break, yeah, we did break this low of May. And so let's see how, if we want to go for way down, way over here, back in April, that'll be interesting. So we'll see. And then for the XLK, so we had the gap up, sold off. So we gapped up to 65, went all the way to, so like had a $5 sell off. The open of Thursday seemed to hold pretty well. I mean, it kind of swept it a little bit, but pushed back up. And then we closed in the middle of the candle. That's a wide range, but then we closed in the mid. So that is interesting. Obviously, it's doing what the NQ is doing. So, I mean, it feels like cautiously bullish is how things kind of played out on Friday. I mean, we kind of shook some people out, and I think there's some indecision on where we want to go. And then we got rate cuts coming, and all these things next week. Well, not next week, but in the next 2 weeks. And I know there's some news and stuff coming up, which we'll go through. But yeah, that's kind of my read. Everything still looks bullish. I think, you know, I mean, sure, there's cases for being bearish and maybe some scalps here and there and some kind of short term pullbacks and all that, but I don't see us cracking and breaking this kind of long term bull trend that we have right now. So you just got to follow what price is doing. Yes, we could be open to going short, but I think ES and the Russell are showing some resilience there, and you know with what happened with the Qs, and we closed really middle of that range candle, like it still feels bullish to me. So let's see how that looks. If we go to the mega tech caps here, or mega cap tech. So we have Apple. I think, yeah, Apple has an event coming next week. So we're up, higher highs. So yeah, gapping up, higher high, kind of close the mid. Still pretty bullish looking to me. Ooh, look at Microsoft. We didn't quite get to this level, which is what I really wanted for like a break and retest situation, but boof. So, Microsoft could be weighing us down going into next week. So that's interesting. Could kind of look into something to do there, but let's see if we can go back here and retest that breakdown level. It'd be interesting to keep an eye on. So that is definitely dragging us down. Amazon had that nice strong day. Pull back, couldn't. Did we break the high? We did break the high. So I mean, we tried. Pulled back. The low held. So we'll just see. We'll see what next week brings. Go Google, go! Look at that. It's amazing. Strong, strong, strong. Google is pulling us up. So I mean, Microsoft's weighing us down. Apple's up. Yeah, Apple's up. Microsoft's down. Amazon's pulling back, but still bullish. Google's still strong. Meta is coming. So we gapped up into this breakdown kind of retest level that I've been looking at. Alert didn't quite trigger, but I am paying attention to this now. I'll put an alert here to see if we fall over. Maybe we follow Microsoft. So let's see. NVIDIA. So this is like the Google right now. So we had that dark pool level, gap down, tried to push back up. We gapped down. We broke the low of this Wednesday, July 23rd. So swept that low, pushed back up. Yeah, man. And I mean, here's your long-term buy levels for sure. So let's see if we can push back up into these dark levels. And actually, let me make this bigger. Let's see if we can push back up into. Yeah, I'm curious if we can get back up to here. And we'll just see what things look like. But yeah, I mean, like this area, obviously big. I feel like if you're a big buyer, you would buy around here. So let's just see what's going to happen. Let's see if we push back up before falling back over. But yeah, that's interesting. And then we have Tesla, which it's in this upward channel situation. Like it fell down, gap up, strong, and then the Qs are the Qs, doing what NQ are doing. So taking the tally, Apple is super bullish, strong. Microsoft dragging us down, kind of a break and retest that I was looking for. Didn't quite get to that retest level, but we're falling over. Have to see what's happening with that. Maybe there was some news. So that's weighing us down. Amazon, I think it looks bullish, so I would count that bullish. Google, bullish. Meta, you know, it could go either way. Meta's kind of neutral. I mean, it's like you look at the chart, it's bullish. I think near term, it could go either way. We did sweep that low of Thursday, but we pushed back up. So we'll see. Nvidia dragging us down. Very interesting. Tesla is bullish. Q is obviously bullish. So I mean, feels more bullish, a bit more bullish in the mega tech. So that's what that looks like there. And then for the Qs, or not the Qs, but the NQ. So we'll mark our levels here, but I did go ahead and just mark the dark pool levels that we saw in the Qs here. So if I go to the dark pool levels and the Qs, and we'll just do Thursday, Friday. Yeah, so we had this 57550, which is nearly $1 billion, and then 575 if all in. So 575, 57544, right? So this is 700 million, 770 million, 500 million, right? And even in between here, so this is well over $1 billion. And if you kind of tally all of the 575s, and I had already plugged that in there. And then we also had 570, about half a billion here. And so I plug these two levels ish. And so your 575 and then your 570, more or less. And so here's the 575. There's the $1 billion transacted here. And so because it's like basically at the mid of the candle, it's like, well, which direction are we going? And then obviously we had like $500 million transacted here, and then we went up, right? And so are we buying? Like I'm not sure if they bought here and then they sold here, and this was just like a super big sell, and now we're short, or we bought heavier, averaged up, and then maybe we're going up. And so I just marked those key levels there, and then so we'll see what that looks like. And then I guess let's go ahead and mark our key levels here in the Qs. Just do that because that is what I like to do on my Sundays, just to make sure everything is here. This doesn't look like. Yeah, we'll sync you globally. We'll lock you. All right, so that looks like a good level to keep in mind. And we'll unlock. It's a good level. Obviously, this high is a good level. All right, so it feels like those are pretty good levels for the monthly, and I guess we can add one more here on this break. Oh, what happened? So this 21,893, I think that'll be my last level that I put on the monthly, just so I can kind of have that reference for the week. All right, so if we do that, and then let's do weekly. Let's see what things look like. Yeah, I like this level here. We'll sync that globally. We'll also lock you. Ooh, I like this level here. Yep. Okay. Yeah, I like this. This 23127 seems like a good like launch up point a few times, so I will keep that. All right, and let's see what we look like on the daily. If all that checks out pretty good. So yeah, on the daily, I mean, these are interesting levels as well. So like this previous all-time high, kind of swept that. This is broke down from that level as well earlier, so it feels relevant to me. This level is here. I guess I can mark this one. I like this. Sync globally, and let's lock you. All right, so that's what things look like there, and then we'll try the 1 hour, which, since I'm already here, let's just jump to that. All right, so on the 1 hour, so we got some interest, got this gap situation here, so that feels like something I want to keep an eye on. We'll sync you globally. All right. And so I think that's, we got this breakdown level, maybe this other breakdown level, which kind of coincides with this more or less. Could be just something to keep an eye on here. Okay, cool. So these are my areas of interest. Obviously, you don't take trades just because price gets there, but I just look for how price reacts at those, whether we stall and reject, or stall and continue, or just break through it. But definitely watching these two dark pool levels and just seeing how we go. But even on the 1 hour, it does look, like some indecision, and we're trying to turn bullish. I mean, obviously, this high right here is an interesting level. I don't know if it's something that I want to sync globally, but I will put that there. It's just kind of like, hey, you should pay attention to that. So yeah, that's what things look like for key levels for me. And just get back on the daily there, so that works. And so on the 1 hourly, so we'll come back, I guess, tomorrow to do like a pre-market check of things. But that is what's happening. Oh, also I did, so over the weekend, well, not over the weekend, yesterday, I was playing with GPT and made this like I made a copy of this Spaceman BTC key levels indicator, created my own version, and added the previous 1 hour, 15-minute, and 5-minute, which I'm not showing here. And so I'm just kind of using that to kind of guide my trades a little bit. So you have your previous day high, your previous 4-hour high, low, and midpoint, previous 1 hour high, low, and midpoint, and previous 15-minute high, low, and midpoint, or high and low at least. And I also had the 5-minute, but it got kind of noisy, so I left that alone, because I usually just trade off the 1 hour and the 1 hour really. 15 minutes just kind of a good reference for highs and lows for support and resistance near term. But had that, so that's pretty cool. So we'll see how that plays out. So that's what key levels look like. So quick look on options flow for the Qs. Did all my filters get cleared? They did get cleared. All right, so we'll look for premium, let's say 200K, looking at the Qs. And for things that expire this Friday, we'll do all type of orders. And yeah, on the 200K front, is this, but for the week. So what from last week, people purchasing options with over 200,000 in premium that expire on the 12th, which is next Friday. Looks a little bit more bullish, feels like. I think this one, let's see, the biggest premiums. So the biggest premiums look kind of neutral and hedgy. We do have this one big, put. Yeah, they bought the puts. Pretty big premium there, $500,000. Looks like they bought it at a 600 strike when the price was at 573. So this is kind of like them just shorting the stock, or like a synthetic short, I think. So I mean, that's pretty bear. That's bearish. Like they're short. Good to know. But there still seems to be more like hedgy, bearish flow there. And so that is expiring on this Friday. And if we move to next Friday, much more bullish feeling. So that's interesting. Let's see the biggest premium. Oof. So we got 7.1 million. So this was purchased on the 3rd. So last week, expires on the 19th. Yeah, they bought the call. In the money, I guess. Yeah, 5, 6, 7, basically. So yeah, I mean, this is interesting. So they're just long from that. So it feels pretty bullish. It's a lot of money, but I think sentiment-wise, it looks like more bullish going into the next 2 weeks. Still bullish going into this week, and then what is the 8th? Yeah, the 8th is Monday. So if we're expiring, so for Monday, if you spent over 200K, it is looking more bearish on the day. So that's interesting to keep that in mind. 575 seems 573, 575, which is basically this dark pool level. So we're expecting to be below this level here. So I will keep that in mind for going into Monday. And let's see if we loosen up to 50,000. What do people think? Yeah, still bearish. So for Monday, it seems a little bit bearish, but for the week, it seems a little bit more bullish. And then going into next week, next week, it's more bullish. So that is just something to keep in mind there. So I zoomed this in because my email shows on my my financial juice. But what I usually do is I'll take the screenshot, I'll put it in my GPT and be like, hey, summarize what's happening. And from a GPT standpoint, so it looks like, so I know we have some stuff happening on Monday, nothing too crazy, but things to look out for. But then on Tuesday, we do have the Apple event. And so I think this could be very bullish for tech going into Tuesday. So maybe Monday does be a little bit bearish or muted. And then we'll see what Tuesday brings. Some consumer credit stuff, Oracle earnings. So this is interesting because then you have this midday to look forward to. So maybe we're bullish into that. And then, maybe we're cautious into the close because there's earnings for Oracle, and then some more tariff stuff because I think, what was it? The court said tariffs are illegal, but then Trump's like, whatever. So we'll see how that goes. And then we have September 10th, so PPI, so that's a big deal. I guess these things from Fed stuff. Let's see. PPI is a big deal. Supreme Court cert on tariffs. I guess that's a big deal as well. So in the morning, so I guess before the open and at the open on the 10th will be some volatility there. So that is good to know. And then we got what the European rate type of stuff. Just kind of looking here. Dun, dun, dun. Yeah, so on the 11th, rate stuff. Oh, jobless claims, CPI. So yeah, that'll be really good on the 11th. Also, it is September 11th, so a day of remembering. And then I guess that looks like it's it. And then on Friday, Friday you got options expiring and all that. Um, and then I guess this like Michigan sentiment prelim. I feel like this came out a couple weeks ago, and I got burned on it because I didn't realize it was happening. You had like a spike or something. So that's just something to keep in mind at 9. Cool, cool. Oh, and then we got Adobe earnings as well on the 11th. Is that here? Yeah, Adobe earnings. Okay. So, there's lots of room for volatility this week. So that is good for scalping. Um, Macro bias seems bullish because rate cuts are coming. Uh, I guess just seeing how the Apple event goes and Oracle and Adobe. So I think, yeah, that is on our radar. And so, yeah, that pretty much looks like what things are looking like for going into next week. Like I said, I'll do the Monday prep and just kind of look at how pre-market action is going, but based on everything I'm seeing, so it feels like maybe Monday, more bets are that we're going to be below this line, this orange line here. And then, Tuesday, we got all the Apple stuff and earnings into Wednesday and more PPI and all the other um, economic releases. And so maybe there's a dip and kind of a push back up. But, like you can't really predict the future. But I think for Monday, we'll be open a little bit more for shorts, but we'll see how pre-market kind of happens. Maybe there's not too much follow through, and then we'll have more follow through into the week just because there's more reasons for the market to move. Um, and so, yeah, that's what things look like. And I think there's also the tariff stuff on Tuesday. So I think Monday might be a drift, um, but we'll just see what pre-market looks like. Cool. Well, that's pretty much it for me. I think I will. Well, I'll be back here tomorrow for just kind of the pre-market review since we've kind of done the key levels and everything, and we'll just see how we go. All right. Thanks for hanging out.